recorded live.
Hello, everybody, and you are listening to the Genesis Science Fiction Radio Show for May 10th, 2013, a service of the BlackScienceFictionSociety.com website. And tonight's special guest is Hisani Dubose. There is some information on the BSFS website about her if you want to look up some things. I'll also be giving you some of the links to some of her work and some of the things that she does a little bit later. But I'd like to welcome you, Hisani. How are you this evening?
I'm fine, thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, no problem. And you are hailing from right now, where are you?
I'm in Bloomfield, New Jersey.
And how's the weather?
Strange. It was warm one day and cold the next, but right now we're in the warm, rainy area.
Yeah, it's been like that. I think it's been like that everywhere. I mean, we had 80 degrees a few days ago, and then, 40s last night, rain and stuff like that. Let's start with a little bit about you. I mean, where did you grow up?
I'm from Newark, New Jersey. A great city.
And have you been there most of your life? You go someplace else for school?
I lived in New York City for a while and different parts of New Jersey, but I'm back in Jersey, but I did stay in New York for quite a while.
Okay. For those of you listening and have not looked it up, Hisani is a screenwriter. She's a director, producer, and author, another quadruple threat. She's what is your role behind Four-Way Vision Productions? Is that your firm?
I'm a partner in Four-Way Vision Productions, and I'm also right now the producer and director of most of the content that we've been bringing up.
That's great. Why don't you describe a little bit about the content, and then we'll find out a little bit more about you a little later, okay?
Okay, Four-Way Visions Productions, actually, this is our first anniversary for the Moxie channel, which is our Internet movie channel.
Okay.
And our Internet movie channel, we focus on not having a lot of clutter with ads, because that's one of the things that annoys us when we look at other Internet movie channels. There's a lot of clutter, which I understand. You're trying to pay bills, giving people a lot of options. But we decided to really focus. And after the first 6 months, we decided that all the ads we take will be ads that deal with sustainable living or organic eating, something that, or if not that, something that really somehow will improve the quality of life of people who watch any commercials we may have.
Wow.
The first show that we had is called Football Girls. We discovered that there are 3 professional women's football leagues in the United States. And one of the teams was right here in New Jersey, in the area where we live. So for our first show, Football Girls, it was a reality show where we followed these women. We followed their practices. We've interviewed them to try to give people an idea of who they are, so that by the time the game started, they would have, a feel for who the players were. And so we followed them last year from March until they won. Actually, the team wound up winning the national championship in August. So those episodes are up. Then our
How
second
cool is
series.
that? Wait, hang on. That's
Yeah.
at, let me just tell everybody where that is. That's at www.themoxie, M-O-X-E, channel.com. TheMoxieChannel.com with no I. Moxie, M-O-X-E, themoxiechannel.com. Go ahead.
Thank you. And it was really interesting, people's responses to it. I just thought it was interesting, and the responses to it as we spoke to people, it's been harder than we thought to get people to watch it. Some guys were telling us, I don't want to see women playing football, that women aren't supposed to do that. And some women were resistant to the idea, and we were saying, well, if you like football, just watch it. It's football. It's not about anything else. So,
right.
Some people like it. It's kind of controversial. Some people are still having trouble getting used to the idea.
Mm-hmm. And what kind of viewership do you have? How many people are coming to the site to see what you guys produced?
We were running between 6,000 and some days 10,000 hits a day.
That's not bad.
No, we're getting there, especially considering that we started this off with very little money, scraping and everything to bring it together. So we're still working on getting the word out and really expanding the audience. But, you have to have it out there before anybody will come on board. That's,
well, that's
how
true.
that is. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, how are you getting more acceptance by men, or are you just finding a broader audience? You're getting other people to log in and check it out. I mean, how do you think you're being able to generate some interest in women in terms of football?
I think so. A lot of the women on the team, of course, they're driving people to the site because there's nowhere where people can go watch their games if they don't come. So
right.
they will. That season is over with now, but we left it up because to take it down would just, people there's still a lot of people that haven't seen it. So if people go to the homepage of the Moxie channel, they'll see our new series as soon as they turn it on. And at the bottom of the homepage, they can click on the series for Football Girls.
Very cool.
So
now, go ahead.
I'm sorry. The series we have running now is called The Hard Way, and it's following a male baby boomer as he struggles to try to stay in shape. So it's a lot of fun, and some of the guys have watched it, and they were saying, I thought he was trying to stay in shape. I would never do all that stuff.
So what drove you to producing these kinds of, right now I would call it like webisodes or web series? I mean, what led you to that?
Well, it's one of the things you're always fighting when you have a movie project that you want done. Even when you do the best business plan in the world and you get people interested in financing, there's always an issue of distribution because it can take years to get the money and get the movie made. Then you finally get it made, and after you go to the film festivals, what next? Because it's not everybody's going to be picked up by a major distributor in a film festival. So, having grown tired of all of this, we decided that we would have our own channel. Start out with reality shows because you can do them with a smaller budget, and work up to the point where if necessary, movies that we produce we can put on our own channel.
Sure. And what are you getting any kind of interest in terms of distribution? Are you mining any of that yet, or are you still kind of trying to break out of the box?
Well, there is someone who has been contacted as my manager, and she was saying that she believes she can sell the series. So, we're exploring those options and see where that might lead. But that would be wonderful if we could sell the series to to a larger outlet. That would be great. So we're exploring the opportunity.
And do you think that if you get some fairly regular distribution deals and can start producing channel entertainment that gets out there more often, are you looking excuse me, are you ready for the expansion that it may take, adding more people, getting more resources together? I mean, how is that working out now? How big a staff do you have now to do what you've been doing?
Well, that's a story in and of itself. I'm an adjunct instructor at Bloomfield College in New Jersey. Mm-hmm. And I teach courses, industry-related courses like screenwriting, visual design, production, all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So, actually, we found out about the team because one of my students said that she was playing professional football, which intrigued me because she was like fashion model type, and for her to say she played professional football, I said, how cool is that? That would really mess people's heads up. So anyway, when we started, there were two students that I had that were very good at editing and everything, and I was talking to them about doing an internship with us because all the students have to do internships. So two of the students said right away they would do an internship with the Moxie channel as we were building it. The next thing I know, word got around, and we had 7 interns. So the first season with Football Girls, we had 7 hard-working interns, my partner and I, and a couple of other volunteers working with us to do all this because we spent about 2,000 hours shooting and editing this project. And the interns were incredible because they were finished in May, but the games went on until August. And they decided they wanted to stay on because they were interested and they wanted the project to be finished. So what we did, since the ones that stayed on until everything was done, we gave them a 1% interest in the company.
Well, I mean, that's the best way to do it. I mean, as soon as people are invested in something, hopefully they're going to see the value added in their life and want to keep contributing. I mean, that just makes sense. A lot of companies don't do that. They just parasitically live off of their employed resources and don't give much back. So I think that's a great way to organize. And again, that goes back to your mission of sustainability, because what you've done is you've rolled your resources into the company, and the resources are not only adding to the company, but they're getting value added back.
Yes. And, the other thing that was in my mind, because in May you see a lot of really talented students in all areas graduating, and then in September, when school starts up again, you see them back just hanging out because they can't find work.
Mm-hmm.
So our part of what we wanted to do, too, since they were very talented. I had helped train all of these students, so I knew how talented they were. So we're trying to build a company so they won't have to do that. So hopefully, at least they'll be able to have a part-time job, once we get the company fully monetized, until, they can do full-time work. So that's our plan. We aren't interested in building a great big old corporation. We just want to produce good content, and once it's aired, see if we can create enough buzz so that people will want to buy it.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, when I don't want to ask you how old you are, but when did you get the bug to start to create movies?
It's really hard to pinpoint the exact moment. I've been involved in performing arts all of my adult life and part of my teenage life.
Okay.
I guess it comes from the fact that my father's a jazz musician. So I grew up around entertainment, and then at one point I was dancing, and then I was playing an instrument, swore I was a jazz musician, playing the flute, till I heard Hubert Laws, and I realized I wasn't serious.
Okay.
And I used to perform as a vocalist, too, and I always felt schizophrenic because, how do you pull all this together? You can't do everything. But then my last year in college, I had the opportunity to write a stage play with some friends. I was in this gospel jazz choir, and we sang in the choir for this show called Pearly that was written by Ozzie Davis.
Mm-hmm.
So we all got excited and said, we want to do our own show. So there were three of us, and we said we were going to write, over the summer, we were going to write a musical and do it at the college. I was the only one that took it seriously. So I went and got a copy of a script, and I started watching. I always watch plays anyway. And I wrote the book and the lyrics and some of the melodies for a musical. So when we went back to school, the other person who was a musical person, she's a fantastic arranger, composer, and everything. We got together, and we actually pulled together this play and did it. And it went over so well. At that point, I realized that that's what I wanted to write this stuff, so then I could take all of that I love doing and I could see it done.
Mm-hmm.
So we did that and moved to a regional theater, and it did well. And I wrote another musical that previewed, and I did two musicals that previewed. We had money problems; they never actually opened. But I decided I wanted to do film because you can't. I got to the point I could no longer afford to go see plays because it got to be so expensive. Plus, with plays, you have a limitation because you can only do 3 acts. Well, before Disney went to Broadway anyway. Now you can do everything, but
yeah,
you were limited in your locations and everything. So I was talking to Claude Brown. Have you heard of a book called Man-Child of the Promised Land?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, it came out, I think, in the 70s. But anyway, the guy who wrote it, Claude Brown, we were going to the same gym. We started talking, and I told him I wanted to learn how to write screenplays. And he told me about this book, and I went and got it. Then I fell into this screenwriting intensive program that the Writers Guild East was doing, and I got accepted. And, I guess that's the point when I decided I wanted to do it. And once I got in it, I was sending out screenplays. I got responses from people. But I realized if I didn't learn how to produce a movie and direct a movie, I'd probably be 90 years old still sending out screenplays. So it's just been necessity. I've been learning all this all the way along. I hope that wasn't too long of an answer.
No, that's good. I mean, about how long ago was that? So, I mean, how long have you been, has it been since you decided that that's what you were going to do until now? How many years are we talking about?
About 15 years.
That's a decent run. I mean, and you've already, gotten a certain amount of respect. That's not a bad run at all.
No, in 2005, I shot this documentary called The Vanishing Black Male, and we were trying to look at I was reading a women's magazine, and this lady who was a PhD in something, she was telling her daughter in the article that she had to face the fact that she may never be able to marry a black male or have male companionship consistently, and she had to resolve herself to being alone, and that really bothered me. And I said, is it really that bad? So I grabbed a friend who was really an event photographer and another friend who knew something about design and everything, and we set up this grueling schedule. Oh, and then Melvin Jackson Jr., who at the time had just finished performing in The Wire on the HBO show, because I wanted to have somebody who looked like they were part of the hip-hop generation asking the questions and everything. So we ran around, we did this grueling 2-day, 12-hour schedule and interviewed 27 people, mostly African-American males, and most of them were either students or they were accomplished men. And we just asked them a whole bunch of questions about these issues, and we put it together, and it wound up being called the Best Black Documentary of 2006. And they said I was one of the best directors, and during 2006, it had, in part of 7, it had a really good run through film festivals, won an award, and the production quality, now that I look at it, because at that time with the camera the guy had and, based on his skill, the production quality wasn't all that great, but the content was moving because of the interviews we got. So, that, and then that same year I had entered this contest at Francis Ford Coppola's screenwriting contest, and I placed as a finalist in that. And, then I have the book out, and now I've done a lot of things. I used to have an organization called the New Jersey Movie Makers Network, because I didn't have any idea how many filmmakers there were in New Jersey, independent ones, and you had to go to New York to do everything. So we decided if we pulled together and put together this organization, a service organization for the independent film community, and train people, bring information in, it turned out to be really great. We had a 5-year run. We had, during the course of those 5 years, about 450 members. The events were well attended. We had JVC of America for two years straight. They would bring their engineers in to introduce new camera products. We had Richard Wesley, the screenwriter who wrote Uptown Saturday Night, Let's Do It Again, Deacons for Defense that was on Showtime. He came and did a workshop. We had a number of really great people that did workshops for free. I was shocked.
Well, that's pretty amazing. I mean, think about that. That's some great success in what people might consider a very short amount of time. I mean, it's successful enough that after the show is over, I'm going to talk to you about getting a job.
Now, I never said in there that I made a whole lot of money.
Oh, well, look, I'm already at that point, so don't worry about that. Tell you what, I mean, who were some of your influences, like, early on? You dropped a few names there, but before you actually got into it, were there influences who you looked at and said, I really like that kind of thing. This looks like something I want to do, what have you?
Well, I think my influences are various because since, I run just about the whole gamut of performing and doing things backstage. I'm a storyteller, basically, and I use everything I have to tell a story. So Stevie Wonder is one of the best lyricists and, talk about storytellers musically, was a tremendous influence. Quincy Jones, because the music that I found him doing for movies and TV series and stuff really helped push the story. Richard Wesley, of course, because he's from New Jersey, and when I actually had the chance to meet the person that wrote Uptown Saturday Night and Let's Do It Again, and he was so laid back and cool and unassuming, and, he's been a big influence.
Are you in contact with any of these people now? I mean, have you maintained contact with any of these people?
Well, I haven't contacted Steve, Quincy,
Well, yeah.
I'm admiring them from afar, but Richard Wesley is not that far from me. And, we're not in contact all the time, but if I need something or want to ask a question, I reach out to him because he's now head of the the screenwriting department at NYU. So I can put my hands on him at any time, and, it's just the same with him. And, surprisingly enough, Hugh Masekela was an influence, too, because his music I found it so incredible in the stories he was telling in the music. Claude Brown, who wrote Man, Child of the Promised Land, was a big influence. In terms of Sam Art Williams, I don't know if you're familiar with him. He had written a play called Home. I think it was in the late 70s. And from there, he went on to be one of the writers for The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Okay.
And Sam R. Williams was an influence. I met him. There used to be this thing in New York called the Black Theater Alliance, and they used to have networking events, and I met him there and had a chance to talk to him and learn from him. I'm sure cool. I'm losing.
As if that's not enough. It always helps to have, fertile minds around you to help push you forward. Why don't you let the people know, what are you working on right now that we could be looking forward to in the near future?
Well, a couple of things. My first screenplay that I wrote that got me into that writing workshop was science fiction. I absolutely love science fiction, but, I'm not just limited to science fiction. So I'm toying with the idea of a new science fiction screenplay. I'm bouncing all over the place about what I want to focus on. So I'll just say that I'm working on a new science fiction screenplay. I'm on Indiegogo.com trying to raise money because I want to do a documentary on dementia, and it's called Dodging Dementia. My mother had a stroke, and now she has dementia, and that's gotten me into looking at it. But now it's bigger than just my mother and I's experience, because I realized after watching a number of documentaries and shows, the information they present is so depressing. It makes you just want to take you and the whole family and jump off a building somewhere. Go
ahead.
Yeah, they never talk about, I haven't heard anybody talk about the alternative medicine doctors and that talk about the reason, because it's almost an epidemic now, the whole dementia, Alzheimer's thing is up higher than it has ever been. And they think that it's because a lot of the things that are in our environment that's making us sick and making this happen. So I want to explore that. I want to explore the effect that music has and how music can make it easier for people in that state. And, just how the arts can help people in that state and provide hope for family members, because I know people in my family are afraid that they're going to get it. So I want to look at it from a different angle, and it is what it is, but not let it be so dismal and hopeless. Of course, the person that gets it, they have it, but for the family members, there's hope. So those are two major things I'm working on, and plus we're developing a new series for the Moxie Channel, so it's three major things.
Well, that's pretty cool. Going back to doing the documentary, one of the things that we're not exposed to very much in the United States of America is non-traditional medicine, or first world medicine. Mm-hmm. And there are so many other therapies. I mean, obviously we have a lot of Asian treatments, a lot of Asian medicine, a lot of Asian regimens that are very effective for a lot of different things. But you go to a doctor and all of a sudden nobody knows anything about it. They don't even know to suggest it as an alternative. Right. So I mean, you serve a huge purpose in bringing that information to the forefront, if for no other reason than to let people know that there are alternative treatments available for some of these very common, but as you say, depressing or debilitating, or sometimes even, they're bad enough that they ruin families.
Right.
So I mean, that's pretty laudable. We still have the argument now about whether or not, these massive vaccinations that we give our kids while their brains are in their highest developmental stage. We have people on one side of the fence saying, oh, well, these vaccinations are just fine. They're not hurting kids at all. This is just junk medicine. Jenny McCarthy is crazy. and then on the other hand, you look at communities like the Appalachias, where they don't do the traditional vaccination schedule, and their incidence of autism is not 1 in 180. Their incidence is 1 in many, 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 many thousands. So,
that's very interesting. I didn't know that.
Well, you've got an uphill battle, and the fact of the matter is, the thing that you're going to do that will be of most worth is the thing that is going to be the most controversial, and you'll get the most traditional pushback from. Because, I mean, some very simple things about dementia, if you keep people busy, if there's art therapy, if there's music therapy, if you walk them around the damn garden, if you talk to them, you can reduce the debilitating effects of dementia to the point where people can have not a normal life, but certainly a far better life than being tied to a chair and drooling.
Yes, and then like the holistic doctor that I go to, he was saying that we're all polluted chemically. And there was an article in this site called Truth Out, and they were saying the United States is one of the most chemically polluted environments to live in the world for people who live here. And diet and taking certain things out of your environment for family members who are afraid that they will get it, there is a form of prevention. Things it's no 100% guarantee, but it's like you send people to war without guns, right? And then you wonder if you're going to get shot. But at least if you go to war with a gun, there's a good chance you won't get shot. And that's how it is, like learning what things you can do to prevent this and protect yourself from these kind of things. Can I do a pitch for Indiegogo on this call?
I'm sorry?
Can I do a pitch for people to make contributions for this project on Indiegogo.com?
Absolutely. Go right ahead.
The site is Indie, I-N-D-I-E, Gogo, G-O-G-O.com. Indiegogo.com is a crowdfunding site, and the name of the project is Dodging Dementia. So if you go to Indiegogo.com and you click on Dodging Dementia, because right now I think as of tomorrow we only have 19 days in the campaign. And if a person donates as little as $10, that would help. We just need a lot of people to do this. Our goal is $15,000, which you being in the industry, that's very cheap.
Yes, it is.
But, independent filmmakers, we know how to get things done. So that would really be good. And, really, most science fiction comes from things that are based in truth. A lot of things that are happening to us now, we've been seeing in science fiction for the longest.
Well, that is true. And not only that, but some of the things that, look at how much science fiction has molded our science and our medicine. Okay, here's a simple example. You take your flip phone and you go back to Star Trek, back when they had the communicator.
Right.
Some of the scanners that we have that people that look inside the body are modeled after some of the things that we've seen in science fiction. So science fiction can presage, the kinds of technologies that we're going to experience.
Remember, they were reading books, what we now call Kindle. Remember, they had electronic books way back in that series.
Oh, sure. They had data pads, where you sign electronically and things like that, and it's hooked up to a network. The thing is our imagination is pretty fertile. And when somebody says, well, why can't we do that? That seems to be the first step on to, pulling off some pretty creative things. Mm-hmm.
I don't know. One of the things we were talking about, because I love the work of the Black Science Fiction Society, and being on the site, there are some incredibly talented people. We were thinking about having a page where there could just be, Black Science Fiction animation, because there's some incredible work out there. So, that's something we're going to explore. After the call, if people think that's something that would fly, if people think it would be watched, I do. That's one of the things we were thinking about, because we're looking for things that normally don't make it to the public eye on a broad scale.
And there's a lot of strength in collaboration. A lot of people won't collaborate. A lot of people are very kind of insular and don't want to share, creativity, resources, things like that. But that sort of collaboration always brings out the best in people, because obviously there's a little bit of competition, there's a little bit of one-upsmanship, there's a little bit of, okay, so I did this, match that. And I think it drives us to be better. Sure, and you have to collaborate, especially when you're the little guys, like you're the ants trying to find a hole in a brick wall. That's true. You have to collaborate, and, it's strength. It just makes sense. Yeah, hang on a second. You're listening to the Genesis Science Fiction Radio Show for May 10th, 2013. Our special guest is Hisani Dubose, and this is a service of the BlackScienceFictionSociety.com website. Go ahead, check it out, and for those of you who are listening, please tell your friends about the show, because once every single one of these shows is done, it's available as a podcast for download or for re-listening online. Let's switch gears a little bit. What kinds of things did you take in school, and when you were in school, were you at the point where you were thinking in terms of, like, doing film for a future vocation?
When school, you mean like college and high school?
Like college, high school and college, yeah.
In high school, I was preoccupied with music. That's when I was starting to dancing, and I was learning to play an instrument, started singing. It was not until I was in college that I discovered that I had some talent in writing. It is funny. I came through college through the EOF program, Educational Opportunity Fund.
Sure.
So there was the Black Studies Department. We were very close to the Black Studies Department. So there was a theater on the campus that was not being used. It was just dusty and sitting there. So after we did the first play, Pearly Victorious, some of us got together and we were saying, well, they should just let the black students use that theater to do performances in, because they had a couple of other theaters, and this was a small one.
Sure.
So the woman that was head of Black Studies, she told me who I needed to write. He was one of the deans or something or other. So I wrote him a letter, and I was, stated our case, why we should do this, and da-da-da-da, and would they, we'd be willing to sit down and talk to them about it. So about a week later, the head of Black Studies called me in her office, and she was laughing. She said that this dean did not believe that an EOF student wrote this letter. He thought one of the professors wrote the letter and put somebody else's name on it. And she said he wanted to meet with me, I guess to grill me, to see if I really wrote this letter. So I thought it was hilarious because it was just a little stupid letter, So I went to the office and I'm talking to this man, and it's like I was a defendant in a trial.
Uh-huh.
And he just, I thought it was the funniest thing imaginable. I said, just because I have some melanin in my skin, you don't think I know how to write a letter? So at that point, I started paying attention, and I said, this is interesting. So after we did, when I did the musical, that's when the bug really hit me as far as writing. And as I told you, then the whole, I don't use film. Everything I'm video orientated, high definition video.
Sure.
Because film was just prohibitively expensive, and I was very glad the digital age came in. But so it was really in college, but I didn't take, when I was in college, I first went in as a biology major. Then I discovered I couldn't, after 3 semesters, I couldn't spend my whole life in laboratories and stuff. So I changed to political science, which is really funny, and made biology kind of a minor, and everybody thought I was nuts.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always been a history bug, so I was always reading a lot of history. But it dawned on me when I wrote that first screenplay that was science fiction, that all of the stuff that I was interested in it was useful, because it was called The Light of Idra. So I had to create a new world. So, and I had to understand the science, the history, how all of these things that you put in place. Sure. And I almost started jumping up and down, yelling in the library. I was like, I'm not crazy. It does make sense.
Well, let's go back to this administrator. So here's a guy. Was he white, by the way?
Yes, he was.
Yes, and you don't have to say it like that. There are white people out there. You don't have to pretend. Well, yes, he was, by the way. And so, obviously what you ran into was a certain amount of intellectual prejudice toward, what his expectations were for you as a person darker than Harry Belafonte. So, I mean, did you get, to use the theater? I mean, what was the resolution of all of that after he met you and grilled you?
We used it one time. We did there was a dance instructor in Black Studies, and he did a dance program there. And it was something for Black History Month we did there. We used it one time.
Okay.
By then, I was about to graduate, and people it changed. Oh, and they were going to tear down the building and replace the building that the theater was in. So we only used it one time.
So just because you guys were in there, they were going to tear down the whole building. What'd y'all do? Did you get your security deposit back?
I don't think it was quite that. They were the building.
Okay, all right.
The theater was in the basement of the gym, and they were building a whole new gym. So they tore. That's why they tore it down, not just the theater. I don't think that they were that afraid of us. They, you know.
I just thought I'd ask.
I got most of my professional training after I got out of college. After Arthur Mitchell, the founder and director of Dance Theater Harlem, he comes to see the musical because the woman who did, Brenda Saunders, the woman who did the music, was the choir director for Dance Theater of Harlem. So Arthur Mitchell he was very good about if he saw anybody with an ounce of talent, he would bring him into dance theater somehow because he knew that somewhere along the line, you know, I guess that it might pay off. So I had a scholarship to study at Dance Theater Harlem, music and dance. So that was my first induction into the professional world of entertainment. It was the best lesson, and I have never forgotten it. I learned so much from working around this man. And from there, I went to a lot of professional training, workshops and seminars and, you know, things like that. And I constantly go to expos, all kinds of training because the thing changes all the time.
Well, and it sounds like that you are definitely investing in your own art and in your own capabilities.
Yes, well, that's one of the things I learned from Arthur Mitchell. If you don't invest in yourself and if you don't create your own audience, then if you wait to be discovered, then good luck.
Well, there is that. All right, so now you've got, I noticed in here, hold on, let me pull my screen up here. Let's talk a little bit about the book that you wrote. And the title is?
Do I Have to Be a Starving Artist in the 21st Century?
All right, everybody, pay attention now. So what's the basis of the book? What's the book about? And then how did you go about getting it published?
Okay, a number of friends that I've had for a very, very long time have seen me go through all kinds of changes. And, you know, the stuff that you go through trying to do your art, you sacrifice, you make money, you don't make money, all that stuff. They were telling me that I should put everything that I learned into a book because it would help a lot of people who were up and coming. And even people who are already in the arts, you know, it's very easy to get into a rut and not pay attention to how things have changed around you.
Mm-hmm.
So at first I didn't think anybody would be interested, you know, because, like, who am I? They don't want to hear anything about my story. But what made me finally go ahead and write the book is when I looked at it from artists don't really understand that we're in a business, that we're entrepreneurs, and that we are selling the products and we're branding ourselves and all that. So usually when you go in, if you're trying to raise money for something, you go in with the attitude like, oh, would you please do me a favor and invest in my movie, my music, my CD, whatever. But if you understand that you're an entrepreneur and you're taking a product or something to people, that you're taking a partnership where they can make money off of what you're doing. You have the talent and they have the money, and this is something that can make money. If you understand that, it changes your whole conversation and your whole approach. What made me realize that I had gone to take, because people were saying, oh, you need a business plan if you wanted to try to approach us for money. So I went to Rutgers Newark, has a small business development center, and I went in there and I took a course in writing a business plan, which was really interesting because the business plans were not geared for anything in entertainment. You know, like the information was not geared for what we do. They were trying to write business plans to get bank loans. If you get a bank loan to do a movie or an album or whatever, you're going to wind up getting a full-time job to pay off that loan because it can be a year, 2, 3 years before you're making enough money to repay it.
Well, not only that, but, you know, whenever you go and you want to fund a movie, you have to assume that whatever you borrow, you got to pay back 130%.
Right, and you have to start paying back on your loan within 60 to 90 days from the time you get the money, which is impossible in this kind of industry. So when I was down there, and, you know, they were really cool. They adapted the business plan for, you know, financing memorandum, whatever you want to call it. They adapted it. They talked to me about the industry, and so they adapted it to what I needed. But what they helped me realize is that I was an entrepreneur, and that all of us are entrepreneurs. So that was a really valuable lesson. It, like, changed the way I was approaching everything. So that's why I wrote the book, to get, I don't care what kind of artist you are an entrepreneur, you have a product, it's business. You know, we're all emotional because we're attached to our projects and we put our blood and life and sweat and tears in it, but nobody cares about that. All they want to know is, can they make money off of you?
Yeah.
And if you understand that, it changes your approach, and you have to know your industry. You know, there's things in the book like how to network effectively, how you can protect yourself. It's all kind. I even have people laugh. I even have a thing in there about a survival kit. So when you don't have money, you don't starve to death. When you have a big box of food to get you through for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, you shop a whole lot different when you don't have money.
For real, it's true. It's really true. So that's what the book is about. There have been people that have read it who are not artists, and they were saying that it made sense to them as just being an entrepreneur, period. And it helped them out. So I just wanted to share all the crazy stuff that I had been through, and if it can help somebody else, then that's wonderful.
That's great. And how are sales for the book?
That's another story. The book is on Amazon.com, and the sales have been okay. I use the book at Bloomfield College. They've been all right, but I really have to do a campaign to let people know the book is out there. One of the problems is since I'm always juggling 3 projects at a time, I really just had, and so many other things have been happening, especially when my mom went through this whole dementia thing. I hadn't really had the time or the wherewithal to really promote it. So that's one of the things. I guess that's my 4th project, isn't it?
Well, that's very hard. I mean, not to brag or anything, but I'm in a similar situation as you. I've written a book. I have another one coming out. I'm working on a trilogy, and the marketing is truly a full-time job. And whether you're an entrepreneur or not, the bills still have to get paid. And sometimes you have to do other things in the service of paying your bills that are not necessarily forward-thinking for your marketing or putting the kind of juice into it that you really would like to put into it. So it is hard. I mean, do you touch on that at all in your book as well, about the prioritizing what it is that you have to do?
Oh, absolutely, because,
good.
For people who want to go into the arts, I was saying that the minute you think that you want to be an artist, you have to think about creating at least 2 income streams for yourself so that you can have money coming in as you do your art. Even if you have to work a full-time job at some point, find a way to make that job work for you in whatever you do. Because, first of all, everything you learn is going to help you in what you do, even whether you realize it or not. I interviewed 2 artists in the book, and they both have, one who is also my business partner, Leslie Ford. He's a jazz musician, and he said he took a course. He learned how to be a locksmith, and being a locksmith was able to help him keep money flowing to take care of his family and do his art.
Sure.
The other one, Al Santana, who is a filmmaker, editor, really well-rounded independent filmmaker. He was saying even if you have to work in a bakery and you're a visual artist and you have to get a gig in a bakery to pay your bills, you can find unique ways to decorate the cupcakes. Just, whatever you do, find a way, find something in it that makes it easier for you to go do it every day and realize why you're doing it. And try to create income streams so that, to give you passive income or residual income so that eventually you won't have to do that. One of the stories that I love, and I put it in the book, Arnold Schwarzenegger took the money he made from winning bodybuilding contests and bought real estate. So when he went into acting, he could pick and choose the roles he wanted, and he could take his time and really build a career because he had money coming in. So that's just one example. Not everybody's going to do real estate, but there are a whole lot of other things that you can do.
Yeah, there's 2 things that I always kind of keep in my job arsenal just in case, something, I do IT work. But one is there's 2 things that I always keep in mind and practice when I'm, kind of by myself. One is, would you like fries with that? And the other one is, would you like paper or plastic? Because you just never know what you're going to have to do in the service of your art.
It's true. It's true. And I used to work for an art center that opened up in Newark. And it's funny how it happened because they called me and asked me if I wanted to come down and talk to them about being a consultant. Eventually, I found out somebody had recommended me, but, in this crazy thinking, I was all right working as a consultant, but then he asked me to come on full-time. And I was saying, I'm to myself, I'm a filmmaker, I'm a screenwriter, a live performing arts center. How is this going to help my career? And then a friend of mine said, stupid, it'll help you pay your bills. So I took the job. And I developed skills that I need in what I'm doing, especially in producing, I developed those skills, on an even broader scale, being down there because I was in programming department. So now what I knew how to do, I was doing it, but I was doing it on a larger scale. So now I would have a budget for like $200,000, and I was working with other artists from all around the world and everything, and it turned out to be some skills and something that I needed, and it gave me a little room to catch my breath because I was able to pay bills for a while.
A lot of people don't realize that, that it is good to, and it is good to have, some outside your wheelhouse employment, because sometimes it can offer you some perspective about what it is that you do that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise.
It's true. You just never know. That's why I keep telling everybody, and I tell the students, the more you know, the more you know. The more you know, the better you are equipped to tell stories in whatever your medium is. Like at Bloomfield College, I felt like I wanted to teach, part-time. And I saw I wanted this for about 3 years, and the Movie Makers Network, we did a lot of events there. So the people in the Creative Arts and Technology Department, some of them had gotten to know me. So when I saw they had a screenwriting position open, I was like, oh, wow, I've been looking for this. And I wound up getting it. It never dawned on me to ask how much it paid, right? Mm-hmm. But I just wanted it. When I got it, when I found out how little it paid, I almost fainted. But I said I was going to stay there anyway because I just really believed that somehow this is going to help me. If nothing else, for people who are not in the industry, if they find out you're teaching at a college, that gives you legitimacy in their minds, right? Sure, so I figured maybe that would help me raise money. It would give me legitimacy. But it's helped me in so many other ways because teaching keeps me really on top of my game. I have to, be current. I learn from the students. They learn from me. I hope the Moxie channel was built because I, was training students, and then they came and they worked with what we were doing. So you just never know. Don't just follow the rule. Whatever comes up in front of you that makes sense, go for it.
I don't see how you can go wrong that way. And a lot of people, there are artists out there who are kind of chauvinistic about what they will and will not do. They only want to do something in their genre, in their art, for their art, or something along that line. And sometimes they end up missing out, or they end up missing an opportunity that could broaden their horizons and really, pay, like you said, pay the bills. I mean, the bills always have to get paid. You have to pay for the phone. You have to pay your rent. You have to do all of that. And when you sit around going, well, I'm not going to do any job that isn't about comics or isn't about shorts or movies or what have you, you could have to move back in with your folks. And nobody wants to do that. Who wants to do that? Where are you going? Out. And how long are you going to be out? For a while. Nobody wants to have to go through that. And sometimes ignoring those little things really put you behind the 8 ball.
It's true, and people don't. I understand because I only want to do what my passion is. And I used to say if I had my perfect world, all I would do is write screenplays and sell them. But there's no perfect world. So until you can get in that position, you do everything you have to do. You never know who you're going to meet. I even have a chapter in the book that talks about up and coming with children, as you rising up through the ranks, because I have 2 children, and I was a single parent, and a lot of people, it's tough, and people don't understand, and so, I was giving some advice about that. I know a number of people, they would drop their kids on their parents, and they would go and do whatever they do, run around the world if they had the opportunity, or just run wherever they could, and then as their kids got older, they started having problems with them. Right. And so you have to balance, and your life is really about balance. I also talk, and I think this is really important because I found out, have you ever heard of psychologists have this thing they call the artistic personality?
Well, I have a PhD in clinical, so yes, I do know about that.
Oh, okay. Oh, boy. So you know what I'm talking about, but how many people do? I read this article in Psychology Today a long time ago that was talking about the artistic personality, and it made me feel sane because it was talking about how you're in euphoria when you're doing what you do, and when you're not, you sink into this depression, and you have to find a way to live in the middle.
Sure.
And I think it's really important for people to understand that about themselves. This guy I know that's a fantastic animator and special effects person, I hadn't seen him in about 2 or 3 years, And when we finally did reconnect, he was telling me that he had been on medication and everything because they were trying to find out what was wrong with him. He was suffering from this real deep depression, and he was on this, that, and the other. And I started laughing, which, was not the best timing in the world.
Okay.
But he asked me, and I had to quickly explain. I said, all artists go through that. That's part of the artistic personality. And we talked for a while, and he was saying, like, that's so simple. I've been going through all of this. And so after that conversation with him, I realized that that's some more information people need to understand about themselves. And with you being in your field, you really understand it.
Well, when you look at how many artistic people have, let's be blunt about this. Look at how many artistic people have killed themselves.
Right.
Why have they killed themselves? Because they were unhappy in a way that they could not overcome. They were in a depression where they found themselves completely without hope. And that's a tough road to hoe for artistic people because they don't generally get the same kind of satisfaction and joy out of having to do the normal things in life when they take them away from their art, when they take them away from what it is that they want to do. And and you're right, it is tough reaching that happy medium. And the other thing is sometimes the discipline of having to pay your bills and getting your head wrapped around that idea also helps you grow as a person and helps sustain you during those less than optimal times. You have those periods of your life where you're going, man, if I have to go and get on the phone and answer one more tech support call from some idiot who doesn't know how to use iTunes, I'm going to have to kill my family, my children, and everybody else because I can't take it. But people get to that point. They get to the point where they have no hope.
Right.
So I think that's great that you cover that in your book, and that's something that a lot of even parents, spousal units, what have you, don't realize about their companions or their children. They don't recognize that, or they're just not aware of that kind of thing. And you have kids who are unhappy. You have adults who are unhappy, and it's because they have not been given a coping strategy to overcome those times when things are not optimal.
And if it's not suicide outright, why are there so many artists involved in drugs and alcohol, all kinds of excessive behavior? As you said, because you're unhappy. At least when you go to medical school or you go to school to be a teacher, a nurse, whatever, when you come out of school, you're going to get a job. It's set up. You know what you're going to do. You can train to be an artist, whether you go to college, professional school, whatever, however you train. You can train for years. You never know when you're going to be able to support yourself doing it. It's a constant thing you have to work on. And I was talking to somebody today that was saying sometimes she just feels like tossing it in because it never stops. It's too hard.
Well, there's a lot of artists out there who think that if they're not making a living off of their art, that they're a failure. That's another, misperception that I think is very, very harmful to people because that's not necessarily true. I mean, let's look at Hollywood. Let's look directly at Hollywood. Something like 1.5% of all the people who work in Hollywood, who work in movies, who do work on all of those big budget pictures, only 1.5% of them are employed full time by in film production. The rest of them are doing something else until those times come when they have a project. But when you're sitting in Iowa and you're thinking, I'm going to be a movie star, I'm going to do music videos, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and you don't have a realistic view of exactly what it takes to get into that industry,
right,
to work hard enough to where you can be self-sustaining, I think it's those misperceptions that are most damaging because we're driven to success. Well, if I'm not making all this money and if I don't have that big ass house and and our stupid men, if I don't have all these bitches hanging around, whatever it is that you perceive to be success is not necessarily success. That's not that doesn't so we have these skewed values that I think are very damaging.
Yeah, that's something else that I do talk about in the book, that, success can be a lot of different things. If you spend all your life, you're working to be a makeup artist, not just, fashion makeup, but, scars, bruises, all that stuff. And if you spend your time trying to make your living as a makeup artist, and then somewhere along the way, you discover that you like helping people that have injuries, disguise their injuries with makeup, and you move over into that business. Are you a failure? No. You've just grown into something else. And it's really true. I think there are like three types of artists. Some people, they like it for a hobby, but they don't know they like it for a hobby until they get out there and they start beating them in the head, and then they say, forget this, I'm getting a 9 to 5. And they're very comfortable with just doing it on the side, and there's nothing wrong with that. And then you have the artists, as you said, who don't want to do anything outside of what they do, and they wind up facing all kinds of frustrations, and they get a certain amount of success. Maybe some will and some won't, but, that's another thing that can be kind of dangerous. Then you have the ones that are passionate. You have to do this. It's part of your life and breath. You have to do that. And no matter what kind of artist you are, it's okay. You just need to know who you are, as you said. And if you're doing things that make you happy, if you're going along with your career, if it takes a road that you didn't anticipate, that's success. That's not failure. And the other thing you said is really important, like the person sitting in Iowa, I put a lot of stress on the fact, if you want to be whatever kind of artist you say you are, get out there and learn your craft. Learn it. Don't say you want to do it. Don't think that you know how to do it by osmosis. Get out there and learn it and stay abreast of it and constantly try to be the best you can, not compete with anybody else. Because if you're not learning it and you're not doing it and learning everything you can, then you're just playing with yourself.
Well, nothing wrong with that either. No, you're right. Yeah, I know, but you're right, and that's the other thing. Unfortunately, when you have kids being brought up with a 2.5-minute attention span, and with people who are not, they don't have to face certain expectations in school because they're getting, social promotions and things like that. People who, that the schools don't teach anymore because parents get upset when their kids get bad grades, even when they have some dumbass kids. You have. Well, I'm sorry. But you have an entire culture that is not geared toward good work ethic and success. You have a culture that's geared toward reward instead of success. It's geared toward reward. And when people don't get those rewards immediately, you get the perceptions of failure, or they suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or even their own parents go, well, why couldn't you have been like Mark? He's a stockbroker, and he's got that big house, and here you are, you want to be an actor, or you want to dance, or you want to be a musician. So there's a certain amount of personality maintenance that goes along with being an artist, because it is a singular pursuit. You are creating things that are based upon what you are, your imagination, your creativity, and sometimes, unless you're lucky to get a good collaborator, you have to do it on your own. So you don't have your own cheerleading squad. You don't have your own support system. You write the story, somebody inks it, someone else colors it, and the other person binds it and sells it. I think that a lot of what is perceived as failure is just a failure to understand what it is and what it takes to do, to do the things that, whether you're considered a great success or a marginal success, which help you figure out where you're going to go and keeps you on the straight and narrow, so that you can pay attention to what needs to be paid attention to and really focus on achieving. I think that's one of the cool things that I like about what you wrote in your book and how you structured the book, because otherwise people have a false sense of what it takes. Look at how many kids who play basketball think that they're going to come out of high school and be recruited into the NBA.
I used to know this guy who worked for I'm sorry to cut you off.
No.
I used to know this guy who worked for the New Jersey Nets before they became traders and moved to Brooklyn. And he brought up a very good point when he said when he would go speak to people in schools, he would tell them, like, I forgot what the percentage is. Maybe it's like 1% or half of 1%, I don't know, who would wind up in the NBA out of all those who wanted it. He said, but if you really love the sport, there's a way you can stay connected with the sport. Look at the organization. You could work in, you could strive for, maybe you're going to be an accountant in one of the teams at the NBA or something, public relations. You can be a coach. There's all kinds of things that you can do to fulfill your passion, and it's the same thing with entertainment. And you said something very important too, because I think it's important. I put that in the book. You know, your family members may be afraid for you. They may try to discourage you, and you brought up a very good point. Your spouse, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, whoever, your mother, your father, these people really don't understand your personality, and sometimes their good intentions can break you down and make you doubt yourself and make you go off into some place where you feel horrible about yourself. But if you understand, if you realize that artists we really do dance to a different tune. Paul Robeson said something that I thought was so valuable. He said, artists are the keepers of truth. Of course, you won't know that now because everything is so commercialized. But
well, I mean, that's true. But, I mean, there's the old funny story, okay? You know, the guy who works in the circus, and his job is to walk behind the elephants in the parade and you know, sweep up the elephant poop. And he complains about it every day. He complains and he complains and complains. And finally his buddy who helps him says, look, you complain about this all the time. You know, you obviously hate your job. You know, why don't you just go do something else? And the guy who's been complaining says, what, and leave show business?
Right. And it's a good example. It's true. Yeah, so the people around you who love you, you know, don't understand, and you really do have to. The other thing is you have to find some kind of connection larger than yourself. You know, you have, whether you want to call it spiritual connection, you have to find something larger than yourself where you can retreat and get away from everybody's doubt and just be honest about yourself, who you are and where you're going. And surround yourself, if you can, with people who understand. One of the things that helped me, it was not artists, but a family friend started telling me stories about successful people and all the stuff they went through. And that got me, so I started reading books about successful people. Discovered that Henry Ford, if you imagine back in his time, when he's talking about a horseless buggy, nobody talk about science fiction, right?
Right.
Nobody could picture what he was talking about. His family thought he was insane when he kept trying to make this thing work and it didn't work. And just before the automobile finally ran, they were about to have him committed to an insane asylum.
Well, Thomas Edison, same thing. You know, he tried 2,000 times to make the light bulb work, to get a working prototype for the light bulb. And somebody asked him, you know, well, you know, you did that 2,000 times, you know, what did you get out of that? Because it must have been maddening. He says, well, I found 2,000 ways, you know, not to make a light bulb. Right. No, his mind was focused on the end product and didn't get depressed over the other part. And here's the last part. Let me just go through this last part real quick. One thing that we don't teach our kids, and especially our creative kids, is that they need to have as good or superior communication skills. And the reason why is because if you can't convey to people what it is that moves you, what it is that drives you, why are you doing what you're doing, you know, you're going to find that the people around you, just out of concern, like you said earlier, maybe sabotaging your efforts to be successful or even to be happy out of concern, out of natural concern, out of all the good motivations. But yet, they're not feeding your soul. What they're doing is they're detracting from what it is that you want to be and who you want to be, but they're doing it for all the right reasons. And I think that one of the things that we obviously don't teach people, because look at how relationships go bad so easily, we don't teach people how to communicate very well. And one of the lessons that I teach, when I do teach, is in communications, if somebody says to you, I don't get exactly what you're saying, the failure is yours. The failure is not on the part of the person who you were trying to teach or the person you were explaining something to. The failure is yours, because if you can't convey what it is that you want to convey, that's on you. That's not on somebody else. And all of that adds up to, you know, some very, going back to your word, some very sustainable habits and skills that will serve you for the rest of your life. Hang on a second here. You're listening to Genesis Science Fiction Radio, a service of the Black Science Fiction Society.com website. This is the May 10th, 2013 edition, and we're talking to Hisani Dubose. And we've had a pretty good discussion here. I almost hate to give it up, but, well, I mean, we're supposed to try to pull in some other people, and people are in the chat room, people are online. I know you can't see the chat, so if people drop questions in there, I'll go ahead and ask them for you if that's okay with you.
Sure.
And we'll see what's going on here. And go ahead. Let's see. Let's have Jarvis unmute the people who are online. And anybody who has... Man, I just got knocked out. Okay, I'm back.
Yes.
Watch this. When I ask this question, nobody will say anything for a few seconds. It happens every week. So does anybody have any questions for Hisani that they'd like to ask? See, I told you. What I tell you. They do that to mess with me. You know, I swear they all talk, you know, like on Tuesday. Yeah,
I got questions.
All right, go ahead. Ask away.
No, let me, so you don't get feedback. There you go. My key question is this. I'm thinking caveman.
Oh.
My question is very simple. In your pursuit, in your art, and doing what you've done, do you feel that you've sidetracked yourself by not focusing more on what you mean?
More
do you
on
need me
what
to clarify the?
Yeah.
Do you need me to clarify the question?
Yes.
You are spread all over the map with what you do. If you consolidated your focus to one thing, could you get your message across easier?
No. Actually, I'm not all over the map because it's all related. The Internet channel is about, you know, what I do, and even the teaching is about what I do. It supports it. The documentary, of course, it's all part of the same thing. During the time, if you just focus on one thing, and the director who, I can't think of his name now, but he produced a whole lot of Hollywood movies that if I mentioned them, you would know. He was saying you have to always have more than one project because you don't know which one is going to go first. And that keeps you busy in your art, that keeps you focused, that keeps your skills sharp. It would be different if I was saying, like, I want to be here, I'm a nurse, and then over there I'm doing film, and someplace else I'm doing something else that's not related, it's disjointed. But if it's all related and you're focused, then for me it works. You know, maybe for somebody else it could be just one thing, but for me it works.
Thank you very much.
Somebody asked also, after, you know, you experienced maybe some failures along the way, what was it that sustained you and kept you going?
Yes, there are failures. There are a lot of failures. Well, put it this way, they're not really failures. They're learning experiences. You think something is going to work. It doesn't work out the way you think. So you get yourself up, you try to figure out what happened, and you just keep going. You can't just wallow in it. Somebody had told me a long time ago that when you stumble, you go forward faster. And that's how you have to turn it around. If you look at, I failed. No, for whatever reason, maybe there was something you didn't know, but now you know it because you went through it. The example of Thomas Edison with the light bulb. And even modern people, you know, John Johnson, who started Jet Ebony magazine, I was reading his book about how he borrowed a little money to get started and he couldn't pay his bills and he used to hide in the office at night from the bill collectors. But people just see the end result, the wonderfulness of it all. But you don't, you know, you have to read books about what other people who are successful have gone through, and you'll see it's not just you. Unless you're born with, like you're Paris Hilton, your family has thousands or hundreds of millions of dollars. Unless you're like that, you know, you're going to have to build things up and you're going to have some rough times. So you just pick yourself up to keep going. And that's where we were talking about the strong self-image, having some type of connection bigger than you. That's where all that stuff comes into play.
Well, that's pretty cool. And so, okay, let's talk about the last 15 years. What was probably the most painful setback that you experienced that may have caused you some soul searching or really kind of, you know, put you behind and you had to work to get through?
There was a project I wanted to do, and I was looking for financing. And somebody who was in the industry, I was talking to him, and he said, I met this person at an event, and he told me if I ever needed financing to contact him. So he gave me the person's card, said, tell him I told you to get in touch with us, with him rather. So I called him and I talked to him, and he was very open and stuff. And we came and we sat down and we talked for hours about it. And he was excited about the project and this, that, and the other. He assured me that he was going to take it to business partners, and they were going to do this because he would push it through. And he took a business plan and did all that. So then I didn't hear from him for a couple of days, and so I kept calling, and he said that tell everybody and, get everybody ready because we're about to do this, we're about to jump off, da-da-da-da-da.
Right.
And then he told me that his business partners didn't want to do the project because they didn't think they couldn't understand it, they didn't think it was going to work, but he was going to personally finance it as he could. So I'm calling everybody, that would be involved, the crew and everything, like, get ready, we're going to be doing this, and blah. He disappeared.
Nowhere to be found.
Again, would not return my calls, my emails, nothing. I even emailed him, said send my stuff, my materials back. Never heard from the man again. So that really knocked the wind out of me because I believed him and he was saying all the right stuff and I involved other people. And I think that's what bothered me the most, that I had involved other people too. So that was probably one of the biggest.
He just disappeared. He didn't at least take your idea and do something with it, did he?
No.
Oh,
no, he couldn't. I was talking to a few people, and they said, probably what happened is he didn't have the money, but rather than tell you that, he just walked away.
Yeah. I mean, if that ever happens to you, I have people in Chicago who actually take care of stuff like that.
Oh, you mean if somebody tried to steal an idea?
Yeah. We'll talk later.
Okay.
All right. Someone also wanted to find out, are there independent movies out there that you've taken a look at or watched, and have inspired you or have had an effect on you? Who is that in the background? Who said that is bull?
Huh?
Somebody's talking in the background and somebody on their phone. Don't make me have to mute the phones, people. So anyway, are there some independent films or other films out there that have inspired you or pushed you into one direction or another?
Oh, there's so many. I use in my classes. I use a lot. I use Platoon a lot by Oliver Stone.
Right.
Because it's written so well and it's so, everything in it works, the music, everything. It's not an independent film, but it was not, it turned out to be a blockbuster, but it wasn't always that way. So I use that a lot. And it also educates because most people who were born in the 80s on don't know anything about the Vietnam War in general. I just saw an independent film from France the other day that I thought was incredible called The Other Son. And it was about Israelis and Palestinians have issues. And this Israeli family and a Palestinian family, during the bombing, the two women had the child in the same hospital, and the kids got mixed up in the bombing. So they find out after they're 20 years old that the Palestinian child has been raised with a Jewish family as a Jew, and the Jewish child has been raised with a Palestinian family. And I won't give it away, but it was really an incredible movie. It's just hard to think of it, but there's so many. Taxi Driver, old movie, Martin Scorsese and Robert De Niro. It's great for character development, and I use that a lot because it's just, it's a great character movie. It's just so many. I could go on for hours, but I'll just throw those out there.
Wait, before you go on, what are the titles of your classes? What is it that you specifically teach?
Beginning screenwriting and advanced screenwriting, visual design. Visual design for video and animation, history of cinema. What else? Production and something else I can't think of now. Yeah. I teach 5 classes because I'm only part-time.
I mean, that's pretty cool, though. I mean, still, not only, and I would have to imagine that you also get some inspiration from doing your teaching as well, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. The students are incredible. I'm not a lecturer. I tell them we have an interactive class, and I don't like being bored, so they have to participate. So we talk to each other, and it's very interactive. And if you want to share information with someone, you have to listen to what they're saying to you. Otherwise, you just throwing stuff at them, and you don't know if it's going or not. So, yeah, I have a lot of fun teaching. And, you know, regard to the other person's question about being all over the place, it's related. It's related. It all is.
Okay. And so when you're doing your own work, what's your favorite part of doing your screenwriting?
All of it. I love screenwriting. I love developing characters. I love telling stories, finding ways to tell stories, visual stories, and you know, that's my favorite thing out of everything. And then everything starts with the story anyway, so again, it's all related.
Sure. And what do you have, let me ask, what do you have like lined up for the future? Do you have a couple projects that you're really thinking about, well, other than the science fiction one? Or if you want to, tell us a little bit about that. Do you have any structure to that yet, or are you just kind of, it's in the planning stage?
Yes, planning. I'm all over the place. I'm trying to focus with that one. But I do have a manager that's shopping around some of my other scripts.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, we'll see what happens. I've even been thinking about, you know, in a couple of major film festivals that have script competitions, just throwing a few of them in there. Just to keep things moving, you know. It's but the great thing about screenwriting too is that it can be used in any medium. Like I love animation, and I love 2D animation, and I hope the people that are doing 2D animation don't stop just because 3D seems to be taking over the world, you know. And I hope they understand that that's a financial move, not so much an artistic move. Oh, and you asked me about thinking about it. People that inspired me, Ralph Bakshi, the animator. Have you heard of him?
I have not, but I'm sure many people at the site have.
Yeah, Bakshi is incredible. He did this film called American Pop, which he told the history of 5 generations of a family through animation, and was just so great, engaging. He did a whole lot of other things, too. Anybody that's doing animation, you should look up Ralph Bakshi. He's incredible. He got out of the business because he said he got tired of the bull.
Well, there is a lot of that. I mean, you know, film. Well, I mean, let's be honest, there is. Now, do you do any animating on your own, or are you just in love with the art?
I'm just in love with the art. Trust me, you don't want me to draw anything. I can't draw a straight line.
Well, I mean, come on. With these computers out there now, sometimes you don't have to.
No, I mean, and you know, you really can't do that. I think I do enough. People are telling me I need to learn, you know, the editing technology and stuff. I know how to sit with the editor and tell them what I want. But it's so much stuff. You really cannot do everything. So I'm limiting myself to what I do now and just keep trying to get better at it. But no, I'm not going to try to animate. There are plenty of people that do it and are very good at it.
Sure. Do you do any community outreach to kids?
I've done a lot of that in the past. I've done a tremendous amount of that. So right now I'm just focusing on myself. I figure if I don't do any more community work, I've done enough to last me for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I have to keep doing it. I do it to pay it forward. I mean, you know, obviously everything that I've gone through in my life has not been simply through my efforts. You know, people help here and there and things like that. And you know, it is kind of good to pay it forward. And then I had a couple incidents with some nuns, and I got to work that through. But I mean, you obviously teach, and you're teaching at the college level. Have you ever taught high school or younger kids?
I did one course for a group of high school kids at a community college. And when I was in college, I taught some high school students in Upward Bound. But I really liked working with the college students. And I guess in a way I am paying it forward because I do, you know, I try to help them with whatever they need. I go well beyond what I get paid to do. So I guess I am. But, yeah, I have worked with younger children. A friend of mine she's passed now, but she had a community organization for 25 years where she would take inner city kids on weekend trips up in the mountains to get them out of their environment. And then, you know, had a whole program of things because once you take them away from their environment, they were more inclined to listen. And I used to volunteer and go on those several times during each year. And then, you know, I did a whole lot of community work through her organization and others too. But yeah, you do have to give. You do have to give. As you said, you have to give back some way or another.
And you mentioned that you have 2 kids. Are either of them predisposed to the creative arts as you are?
I always tease them and tell them I didn't mean for them to get the curse. My son graduated with a degree in animation, and he's teaching art at a urban high school and trying, and he has his own work that he's doing. He recently had a child, so it slowed down a little bit. But he's picking it up. But he's a really fantastic visual artist. Actually, he did the cover for my book. Anybody that buys the book will see some of his work. And my daughter was a professional dancer. She got her degree in dance, and she did a whole lot of shows and showcases around New York. She actually was in the HBO show Flight of the Conchords. She had a bit in there, and she had a bit in 30 Rock. It was on NBC. But see, my daughter's interesting. She's one of those people that transform. She's a very good dancer and choreographer, and she didn't really get serious about dancing until she was in her early teens, which means, most dancers are very young. So in order for her to get the flexibility she needed, she came up with all these crazy ways to stretch. So then when she got older, she kind of got tired of doing all the auditions and everything. She took all that knowledge she had about stretching and studied some more stuff. Now she has her own business called Power Stretch Studios, where people pay her so they could lay down and she stretches out their whole body.
Oh, man, kind of like a torture chamber.
No, because it's painless the way she does it. She just does it, and she's really good at it. She talks them through it, and depending on whatever body part they're having trouble with. She was telling me today she has somebody coming there that has multiple sclerosis. But that's an example of it's not a failure because she took everything she learned in the arts, and now she's an artist of what she's doing with the stretching and the music and with putting the whole thing together. So.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, does she do this does she do this therapeutically for people who, maybe at the behest of their doctors or their physical therapists or anything like that? Or is this something that people actually it's almost like a walk-in business where they know that they have a problem and they know that she can take care of it?
Yeah, she does it. It's a one-on-one stretching, and it's a walk-in. People walk in and make appointments. Now she has 2 part-time people working with her. And it's athletes, it's everyday people that sit down all day and they want to stretch and be more flexible, people that have health problems, it's across the board, it's everybody.
That's great. Let me ask anybody else. Does anybody else have any questions for Hisani?
Yeah, this is H. King Porter. I've got a question for Ms. Dubose. Hey, I have a group page on the BSFS called the Masters of 3D Acts, and we cover a lot of stuff about script writing and things like that. Can you give us your opinion on the value of having a second pair or a third or a fifth or 20th pair of eyes to look at a script?
You should have, when you finish a script, you should have somebody else read it just to see if they got it. Because it's very easy, especially if you don't have a lot of experience. And even when you do, you know what you're talking about and you know your story, but you should have somebody else read it to see if they get it. Because there may be something that you left out to make it work. So, yeah, it doesn't hurt to have at least one person. It depends on what it is. 1 or 2 people look at your script. Because sometimes we have these ideas in our head and we just don't know if it translates. When you're trying to, is there any particular advice you like to give people when they give somebody the script, what to expect and not expect, when it comes time for feedback? It really depends on who you give it to. If you give it to somebody, a friend of yours or somebody in your family that doesn't really know, that they're just so excited about the fact that you wrote it, and they'll say, oh, this is great, because they didn't know you could write something. So don't let that go to your head, and don't, just take it for what it is. If they're proud of you, you actually wrote something. If you give it, it's best to give it to someone they don't have to be in the industry, but someone who will be honest with you, who won't get all excited because you wrote it, who will just look at it for what it is, and they'll tell you whether or not they got the story. But you do have to be careful, because even if they get the story, people will want to interject their ideas and say, well, I think this should happen, that should happen. And all of them are great ideas, but they may not have anything to do with your story or where it's going. So, and I would not give it to a whole lot of people, because the more people you give it to, the more ideas you're going to have about what should be in there. It's just 1 or 2 people that will look at it objectively.
And they're not going to always be good ideas either.
No. But some of them may be really great ideas, but they have nothing to do with your story. You know, for instance, if you have a story where, say, your character lands on the planet, and the first thing he does when he gets on the planet is just stand there looking around, somebody may say, well, I think the first thing he should do when he gets on the planet, he should pull out his weapon and go around and make sure it's safe. Or, you know, which is not a bad thing to do, but it's just not part of your story.
Right. Yeah,
So
you know, one of the things I do is, you know, yes, I have editors, and yes, you know, I have other people read through my stuff, but I have a hard time believing everything I hear until strangers who have no emotional buy-in, who don't know me, who don't want to hurt my feelings or anything like that. I like those kinds of people to weigh in, you know, because, you know, I'll be honest, when I wrote my first book, I didn't know I wrote a good story until I saw some reviews come in from people who I had no idea who they were, because nobody wants to hurt a friend's feelings. And so you have to realize that when you say to your Aunt Mabel, read this for me and tell me what you think. Oh, baby, you wrote a great story. I am so proud of you. Let me put. Can I put this up on the refrigerator? So also I think choosing your audience is very important as well.
True.
I got another question. So when during your writing process, are you how meticulous are you? You know, some people like to write an in-depth outline. Others like to have 5x7 cards. How are you? And other people like to use extensive script writing software. What tools and what process do you use when you write a script?
I use the outline. I set up 3 acts, and I list everything I can think of that's going to happen in each act, and just keep working from that, because, you know, it changes a lot. But at least it gives you have to know where the story is going to end before you start writing. So that's usually the first thing I write to end. You may not know exactly all the details, but, for instance, if you know your character dies at the end, you may not know exactly how, but you know that's what you're going for. The character dies at the end. So I work from that. I don't the cards. I can't be bothered with all that. I just keep working with the outline and just start writing. What was the other question? About software. I guess Final Draft is kind of the industry standard. So I haven't broken down and bought it yet, tell the truth, because I've been using Word and I just set it up so without. But I am going to break down and write by Final Draft, because it does save you some time. But there's some things that screenwriting software does I don't particularly like, but it's industry standard, so, you know, go along with it.
And I have a question for you as well. This is Thinking Caveman again, and this is a little simpler. Do you, in common popular movies, it seems that there's always a trend of the black man will save you, old white man. Bagger Vance, Oblivion, pick any other that you like, but that's a common trend. Yeah. Do you see that ending anytime in mainstream movies?
That's really tough. There are a few black entertainers that now have major companies like Will Smith, and there's some others. It's you know, like the problem is not the problem. The art is in the marketing and how it's sold. So I think we see little drips and drabs of that, but not a lot, not yet. Hopefully that will change. I really wish that there was really a distribution source that was independent distribution source that was strong enough so African American films, well, not just African American films, but what you're talking about, where even like the Whoopi Goldberg film, I can't think of the name of it now, but she was a housekeeper and she wound up saving these people. And
Cora.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and The Help was that kind of movie. And what you're saying, that's been around ever since the movies came out. So I don't know when that's going to stop. I know it's in little places it has, but, you know, I don't know. I wish that's what I don't have the answer to. I think we should keep trying. We should keep putting stuff out there that is not like that and try to get it seen. And maybe people will get used to it. That's been a long time.
Yeah,
So, go on with the
but
wind.
I also
Right?
I also see that even black writers and producers fall into that pattern as well. And I'm kind of looking to find some of your work, not to take you to task, but to see how you would tackle that situation or how you approach it differently. I mean, even one of your contemporaries, Miss Rhymes, fell into that pattern. It's one of the reasons why I don't watch Grays.
Yeah, well, they know what they have to do if they want the thing to sell and they want to make some money. I understand. You get out there and they have all those ideas, but then, the suits start telling them what to do.
Hollywood Shuffle.
I don't write stuff like that because that's not where my head is, and so I don't write things like that.
Thank you.
I think a lot of it has to do with, like you just touched on, is where's the money coming from? What are the expectations, and who's funding it? Because there's a lot of people out there. I mean, Hollywood is full of people who will not take a chance. Otherwise we wouldn't keep seeing all these remakes of stuff that came out 20, 30 years ago. And since it is a money-driven industry, I have a feeling that the homogenization of accessibility for independents is actually very close at hand. You look at Netflix. Netflix streams a lot of content across the internet. Eventually, that kind of technology is going to be available to what we would consider self-publishers. And not self-publishers just of books, but self-publishers of movies, self-publishers of comic book content, both still and motion. I think that with the advent of digital technology, we actually saw the beginning of, or at least the rise of, an independent distribution channel that may not be so hidebound to what Hollywood tradition is. I mean, at least that's what I'm hoping to see. Obviously, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I didn't mean to cut you off. You touched on something very important. The thing is, who's going to give you the money to make your movie? I mean, you can use your own resources, burn up your credit cards, get people in your family. You can do that once, maybe even twice, but you can't build a career on that. The thing is, where's the money going to come from? And wherever the money comes from, that has a lot to do with what's going to be made. And I just really believe, like the NAACP, from Hollywood, and they constantly tell them that they need to do more, hire more black people, people's color behind the scenes, on the camera and everywhere. I would love to see the NAACP, along with doing that, or rather doing that than doing that, to get together and put together a fund to give filmmakers to make meaningful movies, because that's always the issue. And, for instance, like in New Jersey, it's so hard to raise money for movies because there's a whole lot of venture capitalists, angel investors. There's a lot of money in New Jersey, and it's so close to New York. But everybody's interested in investing in pharmaceutical companies, real estate, technology companies, all of that. I just, if there was some kind of way, and most African Americans you talk to that have some money, I'm not talking about the super rich, but people who do take a chance on investments, nobody wants to deal with film because they think they're going to always lose their money. So I don't know, maybe it's an education process where we have to really educate people about how to invest in film and what's going to happen. This crowdsourcing thing, crowdfunding thing, that could work, but I look at the things that are getting funded through that, and it's not the kind of stuff we're talking about so far, so maybe that will change. But getting the money together is one thing to shoot it, so even if you want to put it through Netflix or whatever digital store, you can, you have to have the money to make it first. And the other thing is, right now, most of those digital sources, the downloading and all that for movies, is not going to make enough money for you to pay back your investors. So that's another, it's going to take time for all of this to work out. But the thing is, we just have to keep plugging and put stuff out there. That's why I wanted to do the Moxie channel, because it's, we're working on it. It's going to get bigger, but it's something that we have some control over, but we still need some money.
Yeah,
so
hang on a second. Yeah, let me do a quick ID here. This is a Genesis Science Fiction radio show for May 10th, 2013. We're talking to a remarkable, I always say quadruple threat, but someone who's really invested in her film career, Hisani Dubose, and she also teaches screenwriting as well. One of the things that I keep coming back to, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, but it's gonna be a rough road to hoe for a long time, because when you have a story like how George Lucas had to dig into his own pocket to fund Red Tails because he could not get a studio to back him, he couldn't get investors to back him. We're looking at a circumstance, we're looking at a sociology and a culture that does not find value in stories about, specifically about black people, and even a historical group like the Tuskegee Airmen. I mean, that's a remarkable page in Americans' history, and yet he still had trouble getting it funded. So, there's a good phrase for it, but the entry level for getting, like you said, where are you going to get the money to do your movie? Okay, so you want to do a movie that has CGI and things. You want to do actually, what would be a great first-run movie. Where are you going to get $34 million? Where are you going to get $50 million? Where are you going to get $1 million when you're a black person? And like you said, very well put, you can't do it on your credit card. You can't do the Spike Lee guerrilla filming where you just run out into the middle of the street in New York without a permit and do your filming and then run away if the police come. I mean, it is a business. It's a business. It's an industry. And as much as we want to talk about an art form, the very thing that you spoke about at the very beginning is true. It is a business, and people who invest in a business expect to get money back. Mm-hmm. So, when you talk about distribution and funding, I mean, those are two huge hurdles that somehow we're going to have to figure out how to get over, unless, wealthier, better off black people want to invest in this art, and do things that are something other than low-hanging fruit, like Medea movies. Yeah, I said it. Somebody had to say it. I said it.
Hey, this is Thaddeus. Can I say something?
Sure.
You know what? I look at YouTube, unfortunately, a lot more than I'm happy to admit. And I'm finding that YouTube is teaching me something that isn't being talked about a lot. YouTube decided this week that they were going to be putting their own network together. So there is now the YouTube network that you can subscribe to, pay them money, and you can get to watch films of whatever nature YouTube is presenting. And they're basically becoming their own distributor, like Netflix, like Hulu.
Right.
But if you haven't looked through YouTube lately, you might be surprised to find that there's not just content, but there is good content. There is, some cases, brilliant content, stuff that is being done with soup cans and iPhones, and it is still stellar because they just decided they don't care what the other people say. They don't care what the other people are doing. They will find a way. Just like we used to do, we found a way. If you spend some time on YouTube, look around, you will find people filming with their iPhones, filming with their Go cameras, filming with their cell phones, and the damn things look great. And the films look great, and the stories are great, and some of the dialogue is some of the funniest stuff I have seen. Television, I know why television is dying horribly, because people on YouTube are where all the talent is now. They're not going to studios. They're saying, forget that. Why should I go to a studio when I can write my own funny stuff right here and make money with it? And they're doing it brilliantly. Okay? Brilliantly.
One thing we all have to look at about this, especially at the independent level, is one thing that Hisani said, not Hisani, but Williams had said earlier about the whole guerrilla thing. That was fine back when it first came out. Guerrilla filmmaking. But now we have to, as independents, we have to look beyond the guerrilla and even the independent, monikers. We really have to be what I've been calling myself lately as insurgents. We have to basically make our own. Our product has to be like IEDs. And everything that Thaddeus just said is that. I mean, soup cans and whatever, blowing up stuff on TV, on YouTube, with little or no money, and still making an impact. I mean, you know, filmmaking now for the independent has to literally be an insurgency, and you have to start looking at different avenues for distribution, like, you know, YouTube and Vimeo and several others are great. It's, you know, and even now that they're coming up with ways to start monetizing, you know, monetizing it for you. You know, still you have to, you know, you still have to throw some Hail Marys to really get out there and get the kind of viewership, you know, to really make that money. But, you know, as we've been seeing, it can be done. But also you have to look out even farther outside, you know, outside that particular box and look at other countries. When you mentioned you mentioned how Red Tails, you know, couldn't get funded here, you know, to be made. Everybody forgets that movie killed overseas. You know, I mean, it killed. It made, you know, most of the money that they made came from overseas. So, you know, even what was it, Waterworld? You know, when everybody's sweating a load about Waterworld way back when, it made all its money back overseas. You know, like quick. You know, but they considered it a flop. Even the film Kingdom of Heaven, which was an excellent film. You know, it didn't do well here, but, you know, it made $200 and some odd million, you know, overseas before it even got here. So, you know, we have to start looking at other avenues, because one thing about it, in that content, you know, it's like, especially in YouTube, going back to the YouTube example, it's not just Americans looking at this stuff. You know, the Japanese are looking at this stuff. You know, the Germans, Europeans, you know, everybody, Africans are looking at the stuff that we make. So it's like, you know, yeah, you can still make this movie. You know, you can still make black films, black-oriented films, and get the message out there. But we already, I mean, you know, we've beaten this horse pretty much to death. We know that Hollywood really isn't interested in us. But the one thing we all keep forgetting is it's not interested until we show we can start making money. Because I mean, let's face it, nobody cared about Tyler Perry's flicks until they start, you know, until people start noticing that, you know, this dude was making money.
Yeah, but that's the ticket right there. If you look at Lonely Island, you remember Lonely Island? I'm on a boat. Remember them? Do you know where they started? They started on YouTube making really crappy videos, and I mean really crappy, because I went and hunted them down. They were an abomination. Okay,
guys,
they learned. Yeah. They learned. They practiced their craft. They kept at it. They kept doing goofy stuff, and lo and behold, their best goofy stuff got them seen, and it got them paid.
Well, you're both right. You're both right. There is not just one avenue or one way to get this stuff done. Whatever you find and you want to try, put it out there and do it. You're right. YouTube, some people have gotten on YouTube and their work has been seen and they've been picked up by major companies. That's very rare, but it has happened. If you want to keep, as you said, putting your stuff on YouTube and getting it better, and, you know, if that's going to work, but in the end, and we can still do guerrilla films like Spike Lee, but you can't do it for your whole career. You might be able to do that once, do it very well, make it look good, get some noise. So there, you have to try everything. You can't limit yourself to one thing. But the bottom line is, as the gentleman was saying, your stuff, you have to at some point raise to the artistic level where it can be seen everywhere and respected. But don't sit down and wait for a perfect opportunity. Jump out there and do it. Just find a way to do it. Tell a story, you know, rough story, whatever you have to do. Be careful with YouTube, Vimeo, these sites, because they're the distributors. And if you read the fine print, when you put stuff on there, if they decide to step up, if somebody offers you, say Warner Brothers comes to you and say, we want to take this series that you have on YouTube and we want to put it, you know, buy it and put it up somewhere, they have the right to step up and say they're the distributor and negotiate for you and take some of that money. So you just have to be really careful how much you put on there. And a lot of the stuff you see on YouTube, all these new channels, they spend millions of dollars getting that content on there. You have some of everybody on YouTube now. But you're both right. You know, it is guerrilla war. You just have to find whatever you think is going to work for you at the moment. Try it. Try everything. Don't limit yourself.
The other thing that I would mention, too, is if you're going to put together a movie for YouTube, even if you're going to do a full feature, you still have to face the issue of how am I going to pay for it.
Absolutely.
And the problem is that right now, you know, and I said this earlier, that in the future I believe that this is going to be a much, much more viable distribution channel. But at this point it's not. And so, I want to make a movie that I need to have about $850,000 to $2.5 million. Where am I going to get that money from? And the most important part of me trying to put this project together is, how am I going to pay this back in a timely manner? Which means, when the movie is done and these people say, well, your movie's done and you're trying to get a deal or whatever, but it's time to pay us back, that's a huge, huge hurdle. I mean, just borrowing that much money from somebody else is a frightening idea.
So maybe you don't borrow all that money all at once. Maybe you start off with some shorter, smaller features that you can afford. If you look at, there's a group that does epic rap battles of history. When they had their first season, they were literally doing it in their basement, and there was 3 of them, and they were dirty and cold and making their costumes by hand, but they were funny. And they got a bunch of people to participate with them. In their second season, they had 8 or 10 people. They had donated camera equipment. They had people showing up. They even had a little pseudo studio that they could work out of. And someone was even willing to give them money as far as advertising. So they went into the second season. Second season was also funny. Now their third season, they've gotten real actors to want to show up in their videos. So they had Key and Peele show up for their Mahatma Gandhi versus Martin Luther King's battle. And it's one of the funniest battles they've ever done. Now, at the end of season 3, they have money, they have a studio, they have people working with them, they're getting more funding, and they've got new sponsors. Yes, it took them 3 years, but because they were consistently funny over that 3-year window, now they're getting the attention of real people. So maybe it just has to be something you start really small and work your way up and convince people to donate their time in the beginning, donate their equipment, donate their space, and slowly work your way up. Consistency breeds people interacting with you.
Well, you're right. We're in a very visual business where people want to see that you've done something. So you do have to do something, whether it's YouTube, no matter how you do it, you have to put together something. You have to get the ball rolling somehow. But as far as your question, what you were saying about paying back, usually that's why you have to really educate yourself to see how all this stuff works for anybody doing this. If you're after investors for your film, you have to know when you tell them that you won't start to see any return on your investment for at least 18 months. Because depending on what you're shooting, if it's a feature, it may take you a year, half a year, if you're trying to conserve money, you're going to try to do it in a half year or less. But to shoot it and edit it and do everything you need to do, and then it's going to take time to get it out there. So it's going to take at least 18 months before they start to see their money. So what you do is say that they will get money during the course of the life of the project. So they may start to get money after 18 months. Most movies, I think the average life is about 2 years. It can be more. As it's DVDs, Blu-ray, however it's distributed, it takes time for them to get all this money back, and you have to be very clear about that. And there's you can talk to a lawyer. There's a legal way that you have to put in your agreement saying that this is a risky business and that this person has to be an astute investor. And if your Aunt Mary only has $500,000 in her life savings, don't take $250,000 Aunt Mary savings, because you may not get it back for 2-3 years. So just have to be really careful. But it is you have to educate yourself about the legalities and talk to a lawyer and everything. Get a lawyer pay. That's another thing. You have to take some money out your pocket, pay a lawyer to do an investment contract with you. What I did, I had one done. I think I paid the lawyer $500, which was really cheap. She was doing me a favor. But in the meantime, I keep using that same contract. I just keep changing names and dates and moving names. But, I keep using it as a basic contract. But you have to do that. You have to have a legal contract.
And the part B of that is you also have to work with educated investors. If you're going to go to, if Uncle Ed has a candy company and you go to Uncle Ed and you say, hey, I need to borrow $250,000 for a movie, and Uncle Ed doesn't know anything about high-risk investment, that can ruin a familial relationship, that can cause bad blood, that could wind you up in court for a lawsuit that could have been avoided by maybe choosing another investor. So, I mean, going all the way back to what you were saying at the very beginning when we started the interview, you have to educate everybody around you to what the expectations are, and more importantly, you have to treat this as a business. At its baseline, it is a business. It's not a bunch of school kids getting together to make a movie. This is serious. It's a serious business. We're talking millions of dollars. Here in Illinois, they treat it as such an important business. For any production that's over $100,000 that's spent in Illinois, you get a 30% tax break. And those tax breaks are transferable, they're sellable, things like that, and they're selling for 90 cents on the dollar. So there's huge, huge value in it, but it is still a high-risk investment medium.
And anybody that's interested in trying to get a film finance this year, look up the IRS Section 181.
Oh, yeah.
Section 181 under the IRS rules. And what that's saying, if you have investors that invest in your movie before December 31st of 2013, they can basically write off their whole investment, which is a great, so they have a win-win situation. They write off their investment, so that gives them a great tax break. And then if you actually make money, so, it's a great situation, but you need to look at it and talk to an accountant and have them interpret it for you very clearly so you know how to explain it to people.
And all of that information should be in your package that you present to your potential investors as well.
Absolutely.
Another thing, too, I found that has helped me immensely in, especially when, courting investors and especially after I get investors, is, include them in the filmmaking process. Include them in all this in the marketing process. When you're shooting the film, make sure invite them down on the set. Don't get too crazy with it, because a lot of times investors will come down and they'll have often they have opinions. But if you just kind of bring them down there and let them see how things are being done, that's kind of a cool thing. Like I say, don't get carried away with it. But and then also when it comes down to anytime when especially when you're building up a merchandise a merchandise base for your films, T-shirts and all the other stuff. Make sure that your investors get that stuff. When the first run comes out, you make sure that there's nice shiny packages with their names on and big red bows or whatever, and so that that they get that stuff, because investors like seeing that stuff. That shows them that you're that you're serious about this, and that they not only the cool part about getting material from associated with the film, but they can see that you're serious and you're putting forth the effort to have revenue streams come in. Another thing is and really important thing is when you have film screenings or God willing you get into festivals, invite investors to come out to those things. Especially if your film's up for an award or something like that. Do whatever you got to do to make sure that they can get out there to see that or at least make sure that that you tape it or something so that they can see that this that your film has momentum and that their money actually went somewhere. So even if you don't make their investment back, a lot of times when you come back to them for more money for another project or a continuation of maybe a sequel for that project, for the original project, they'll be a lot more interested, a lot more willing to hear you out and participate, because they know, because they see, because you basically what you've done is you've educated them on the process and on what happens and what and the potential of it. So that your next project is now that they know that your name is out there, their name is out there. That can attract other people to them to invest or who might be a bit more successful than you are. Then that they may have a better chance of getting their money. But the thing is, you're basically you're giving them perks. Even when you're not writing checks for them. So in this situation every little bit counts.
Hey,
that's all true. And the other thing is don't let investors tie you up with conditions that you would never tolerate otherwise. Like I will lend you this money if you put my nephew on your production staff, like that.
I heard you don't have a choice.
sometimes you may have to do that, you know.
What you can do.
Oh, good.
Go ahead, Hisani.
Okay, what you can do to attract, one thing you can do to attract investors, I don't care if you're doing animation, if you're doing live action, find a way, if they're in business, they have some kind of business or service, tell them that find a way to write them into the story. It doesn't have to be a whole lot. But, if somebody has a chain of stores in your hometown or one store, and if they're going to give you some money, shoot something, a scene, let something be done in their store. If it's animation, put it in there. It doesn't have to compromise your story. It shouldn't be overwhelming. But be creative and find a way, tell them that you'll actually write their business into the story. And that's very attractive, and then you're going to include them in the credits and all the other information, too. You have to do whatever you can do. Another thing that this producer, Richard Rubenstein, I had a chance to talk to him. He did, he did Night of the Living Dead, the remake of it. I think he did another 28 Hours. Anyway, if you look him up, he did a whole lot of movies. He did Dune, Children of Dune, and all that kind of stuff. But he was saying that when he talks to potential investors, he becomes whoever they want him to be. Not that he starts kissing up and everything, but if he's going to somebody who's from a corporate environment, he will dress that way. If he's going to somebody that's a big-time musician, he's not going to show up in a suit and tie. So basically, do research on whoever you're trying to deal with, and whatever makes them feel comfortable, whatever look makes them feel comfortable, that's the look that you do. It doesn't mean like if you're a guy going in and a woman likes she's a cougar and you're like a young man. It doesn't mean you're going in and trying to seduce the woman. But whatever look makes people feel comfortable. Because if you go into somebody that's a very corporate kind of person and you go in looking all artsy and everything, that's going to distract them because it's not what they're used to. But those two things can help.
Hi. My name is Alonzo Von3. I'm AVT Pro there. I also do 3D animation. I just want to say kudos to you, Hisani, and your business aspect and outlook to all this. But to that point, we talk about investors a lot, but, there's a lot of education that has to happen to specifically, and by all means, there's a lot of educated people on the topic here. But there are people who specifically educate other people and other people, independent artists like me, who are interested in that, and that you can get counseling for that. So, and to the point is like, there's things like that if you show your movie before you actually option it to a cable company, a movie house, if you show it once, you've lost money. Mm-hmm. That's premiere rights. So, and there's things like churn factor, like how long it has to be in the theaters before it actually can go to DVD, global markets, how it actually, you can make most of your money overseas. And one thing that's really important, because they're doing a movie in Buffalo here now with a red camera, an ex-Sabres son, which is our hockey team, he invested. And so to that point is that, you have people who are sports people, doctors, lawyers, and how to get those people. They don't have exciting, they're doctors and lawyers, to be a part of a film company or to take some of their money and be able to say at a party, yes, I'm sponsoring a film. That appealed to them. When you go to the a movie, it only costs like $250 to rent a movie house for a showing. When you invite them down there, cater to them and make them feel good, that's your money, and they're looking for it. It sounds crazy, but it's really their ego that is the main thing.
Yeah, it's that sexy thing about being associated with Hollywood, even though it's not Hollywood, it's independent. You're absolutely right. People buy into that who do normal things, and a lot of people get excited about that. And everything you said is true. And that's why sharing information is so important. That's one thing we have to really do more, share information. It's not really about competition, because what you do is different from what I do and the next person and all that. So what you're doing is you're right. You're absolutely right.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's true.
So there's money to get. There's money. I mean, you should know how to, $100. It's all relative when it comes to money. So $1 million compared to, what they're giving, and there's a way to sell the $1 million. Like, you don't have to say $1 million, but you can say you can buy 10 units of $100,000. And so how many units will you have? So there's ways to do it.
There's a ton of ways to do it, but the bottom line is do your due diligence. Okay, if you're going to go and make a movie and you're going to try to be, try to distribute it, then learn what the hell you're doing, what the expectations are, what the rules are, what everything is. And I hate to cut everybody off, but we've actually run out of time, believe it or not, for the evening. You've been listening to Genesis Science Fiction Radio, a service of the BlackScienceFictionSociety.com website. This is the May 10th, 2013 edition, and we've been talking to Hisani Dubose. And for those of you who are online and want to chat a little bit later, we do have the after show after this show. And let me ask Jarvis, our great administrator and the originator of BlackScienceFiction.com, BlackScienceFictionSociety.com. Jarvis, what are your closing words for the night?
Hey, I just want to continue to thank everyone for participating, and I hope you gained as much knowledge from this guest as I did tonight, because she was really outstanding. Make sure to join us every Friday. Tell people about the show, participate on the site, and I just want to continue to thank everybody. Your participation is very appreciated.
And don't forget, for those who have missed the show or people who you think might be interested in the content of the show, let them know that the show will be up as a podcast or a download at BSFS, and they can see exactly what they missed, and hopefully they'll be around again. On behalf of the BlackScienceFictionSociety.com website, my name is William. It's been a pleasure being with you. Hisani, thank you for making my job easier, and we'll see everybody next week.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.